Welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. Okay, we're back with attorney Jeff Roberts down here in Calloway County, who's actually got a pretty interesting announcement to make. So, Jeff, welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jim.
Absolutely. So let's kind of talk about the big news.
Well, the big news, I've been here in Murray for 30 years now, basically, and I'm still going to stay here in Murray, but I'm also going to have a satellite office in Hopkinsville that I'm going to be meeting clients at and servicing that area of Kentucky a little more than I have in the past.
Well, it's interesting because you've always had kind of a regional practice. I mean, it's statewide, but you've really kind of gone so much further out than Calloway County. I mean, I know you're handling cases from Louisville and all over the place. So this actually is a nice move because here in Western Kentucky, that is a big population center. There's a lot of people that have traditionally traveled down to see you, or you've gone up to see them, but now this is going to make it a lot more convenient for both of you.
That's true, and my practice has always been regional from that standpoint, and even now, while I have a lot of clients that are in Calloway County, I have a lot of clients in other counties in Western Kentucky. I handle cases all over Kentucky from that standpoint, but obviously Western Kentucky is where I draw from primarily. I noticed over the last couple of years, I've been getting several cases out of General Motors in Bowling Green, and then cases from Hopkinsville, Trigg County, Madisonville area. So, and there's an attorney in Hopkinsville that I've been friends with for quite a while. He and I've worked on cases together, and we were talking about that, and I was talking about possibly coming up to Hopkinsville to have an office because he doesn't do any workers' compensation.
And that's a significant part of your practice, actually.
Workers' comp and Social Security is a big part of my practice. He doesn't do either one of those types of practice. He practices in Kentucky and in Tennessee as well. And I'd mentioned to him that I was contemplating opening an office up there in Hopkinsville, primarily to as a service to my clients, because I have several clients from up in that area, and it's easier for me to drive to Hopkinsville one day and meet 5 or 6 clients up in that area, and then drive back home than it is for 5 or 6 clients to make the trip down to Calloway County to Murray. So it's just I figured it would be easier on my clients, and as people who work with me know, taking care of my clients is what I want to do. So I mentioned it to him, and he actually said that he had an office in his office that was empty, and offered to allow me to use his office to meet with clients up there. And and I told him, well, I want to have my name on the door and be able to advertise it. And he said that was fine with him. His name's Mike Berman. Yeah. And so I'm going to be starting meeting clients up there. And it just, I think I like face-to-face conversations. With the pandemic, we've gone to phones and video, FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, Microsoft Teams a lot, and it works well, and I'm glad we had that option. But I'm old school, and I like to sit down face to face with clients. And to me, when I talk to a client face to face, when I have that ability anyway, I can pick up on the nonverbal cues a lot better looking at a person in the same conference room or the same office than looking at them on a computer monitor or on a phone screen. So if I'm talking to them about a complex legal issue, I can tell if I'm not explaining it in a way that makes it easier for them to understand, and I can I can alter the way I'm trying to explain it, and I can make sure that my clients are understanding everything the way they need to understand it, so that when they make a decision about their case, they're making a well-informed decision. And so I thought going up there would be a big benefit to the clients I have up in that area.
No, I think so. I mean, because you do this stuff every day, and so some of these terms, some of these processes, again, you're very familiar with them because you've done them, for so many years. And actually, sometimes when you're talking with somebody, it's easy to kind of slip into that legal jargon, and you just assume at times. But I like your approach is, hey, wait a minute, I need to slow down and make sure my clients are following this because, again, this is new to them. And they ultimately are going to make the decision on a lot of important factors in the case, or the claim at least. And I like that because, again, being able to read their body language to understand, okay, you're uncomfortable with something. Is there, what else, what haven't you said yet? Because a lot of times, this is personal stuff. People get a little nervous about it. They kind of clam up sometimes. But I like how you're able to just kind of walk them through the conversation and just take the time to do that. When you look at your history, as you focus on workers' compensation, Social Security, disability, some personal injury work. When you're doing that, it's not uncommon for you to meet clients outside of a law office.
Yes, and I've done that my entire career from that standpoint. I've had lots of clients in McCracken County, Graves County, up in the Hopkinsville area for years. I have clients in Louisville, Lexington, and Bowling Green. And what I've done in the past when I was meeting face-to-face with the clients is we would meet at a restaurant or at a client's house if they prefer to meet at their home. So we would find a place to meet from that standpoint. But when I do that, I meet that one client, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
When I'm doing it from that perspective, because a restaurant don't want me sitting there 5 hours drinking coffee, having different clients coming in to meet with them from that standpoint.
Right.
And so having this satellite office where I can sit down with clients, meet with them, and be there, one day every 2 weeks, one day, however frequently I need to be there to service my clients in the best way possible. I think it's going to work out and be very beneficial to my clients up in that area.
Well, I think another part of it, again, this comes back to your client-focused approach, is I think people are more comfortable talking to you about these delicate situations and really personal information when they're behind closed doors. And sometimes you really don't feel comfortable opening up in a restaurant or some other public venue just because you don't know who else is listening. And people are basically private about a lot of things.
Exactly. And when I meet with clients, have met with clients in restaurants in the past, when I get there, I find a booth or a table away from everybody else so that we can have conversations without people listening in. But, after you're there and sit down, you don't know who's going to be coming to sit down beside you and things of that nature. So, I try not to have real conversations that are going to be extremely personal with clients in that setting just because I know they're not going to be comfortable and I'm not comfortable discussing it. And we try to have those at a different location, their home or wherever, from that standpoint. And from the standpoint of doing it in person versus in a private setting like I'm going to have now in Hopkinsville and here in my office in Murray, versus doing it over the phone, I have noticed over the last 2 years the difference between clients coming into the office. My initial meeting with clients in the office frequently is an hour and a half long for that first meeting.
A lot of details, a lot of information.
A lot of information to go through. They're giving me a lot of information, a lot of questions being asked back and forth on both sides. In the interaction and seeing their cues, and I know I need to explain things differently or better. And the visits take longer from that standpoint. And I realized when I'm doing it over the phone or doing it over a video conference, those initial meetings weren't taking as long. And I don't think it's because I'm doing a better job of explaining. I don't think it's because the client has fewer questions. I think it's just in that setting, they're not as comfortable asking all of the questions that they would ask if they were in a private setting in the office. So I think it's going to be better for everyone involved because, frankly, I want more information, not less information from my clients, and I want my clients to have all the information they need to have to make whatever decisions they're going to have to make on their case. So I think it's just going to be very good for me and very good for my clients as well.
Well, I got to think sometimes a client may be bringing a bunch of different files or some reports or a bunch of different papers, and on a small, restaurant, table, sometimes it's a little difficult to lay these out the way they need to be and to make sure they're in order. And again, you don't want other people looking over and trying to read what you have on the table. So I that's a great move.
Right.
Yeah, I've known Mike Berman for years. He's got a great practice up there. But I'm glad you're going up there because there are a number of facilities in that area that probably need someone who focuses in workers' comp and Social Security disability insurance.
Exactly. And there's a lot of manufacturing and other employers up in that area. And, I don't think there's as many workers' comp attorneys up in that area as there used to be. There are still a few that do practice in Christian County. And if you look online, you'll see a lot of people who are nowhere near Christian County advertising in that area. In fact, I advertise up in that area while my office is in Murray right now. So I think it'll be good for not only my current clients, but it will provide the blue collar workers in Christian County another option that they didn't have before, as far as Social Security attorney, workers' comp attorney, personal injury attorney, and it's just, I think it's going to be beneficial. Of course, I have clients, as I mentioned before, I've had clients in Hopkinsville. I've got current clients up in Hopkinsville area. I've got clients in Bowling Green, from the General Motors facility and some other employers up in the Bowling Green area. So it's going to make it's going to make my ability to represent them, I think, a lot better, and I'll be able to do an even better job representing them with having this new office.
Well, yeah, in Madisonville's not that far away, and obviously with the roadways the way they've expanded lately, there's a lot of traffic going through there. So a lot of people, it makes it easier for them maybe to get to that area of the state versus coming all the way down to Calloway County. So once again, just a really nice move in that regard.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. So when you look at workers' compensation, you've done this for many years. It's a complex system, and what I like about it is the fact that as complex as it is, you're able to walk your clients through workers' comp. And we've had numerous episodes of this podcast talking about workers' compensation. You've got a full, web page about it. You've got a lot of information out there about workers' comp. But when you start to look at, Hopkins County, Christian County, that area, which is still similar to Calloway County, what typically are you going to see in the types of injuries that may result in a claim that you may help a client with?
Well, in the manufacturing industry, you have a variety of different types of injuries that occur in those type of plants. With manufacturing, a lot of times you have some employees that are working in there that have to do fairly heavy lifting, and they'll have a low back injury. And what I see frequently is shoulder injuries from having to do things overhead or repetitive use of their arms and wears out their shoulder from that standpoint. With lifting overhead especially, people can injure their neck. So you'll see that a lot of times you'll have knee injuries from they're moving product and twisting when they're lifting or moving product, and when you twist, if you plant your foot and carrying weight, you can cause a tear of the meniscus or something else, ligaments or whatever in the knee, and can cause injuries from that standpoint. So the spine is, at least what I refer to the spine as one long joint, because it allows you to move. And what I normally see in workplace injuries are joint type injuries, wrist, elbow, shoulder, knee, hip, spine injuries. You occasionally will have fractures where something is dropped on someone and they have broken bones and things of that, but it tends to be either overuse or a joint that gets injured because of a certain maneuver.
No, that makes sense. And then, obviously there's the more traumatic type of injuries where if you're working in a machine shop or maybe a stamping facility or something like that, where maybe you have a limb that gets caught in the press, or maybe there's a lot of other things that happen that often result in serious catastrophic injuries, but that's what the Kentucky Workers' Compensation System is there for.
Correct. And if you're an employee in Kentucky, you're covered by the Workers' Compensation Act, except in a few very limited situations, you're going to be considered covered under the Workers' Compensation Act unless you voluntarily opt out. And in 30 years of doing this, I've had one client that's come through the door that had signed a voluntary waiver of the Workers' Compensation Act, and that wasn't a valid waiver because it was a condition of employment and wasn't voluntarily made because they were told, you sign it or you don't get a job, and the court said that's not voluntary. So technically, in 30 years, I've not seen one valid waiver of the Workers' Compensation Act. So, if you're working as an employee getting a W-2, you're covered under Kentucky's workers' compensation law. Even if they claim that you're an independent contractor, you may truly be an employee and still be covered under Kentucky's workers' compensation law.
And unlike a motor vehicle accident, like a car wreck or something like that, you don't have to wait to the end of the case for that settlement. I mean, during workers' compensation benefits, I mean, they kick in fairly quickly in terms of the temporary total disability payments and those weekly, biweekly payments, correct?
They do. They kick in. You have to be off 7 days to start receiving workers' compensation benefits. But those benefits will, once they accept the claim, the insurance company has a right to investigate the claim to make sure it's a valid work-related injury. And that's the reason when you have an injury, you need to report the injury to your employer.
In fact, that's one of the rules under the law is that, hey, look, you have to notify that employer.
Correct. You have to notify them as soon as practicable after the work-related injury. That doesn't mean immediate notice. And I've had employers tell my clients before that if you don't give notice within 24 hours, then you can't pursue a workers' comp claim. That is not the law in Kentucky. At least since I've been practicing law, that's never been the law in Kentucky. Now, it may have been back in the 1920s, 30s, or 40s, but it has not been in a long time the law in Kentucky, if it ever was. From that standpoint, but you give the notice to them so they can start that investigation, and then, and frankly, usually within 3 weeks the investigation is completed, and if the person's still off work, that check is already started, as a general rule from that. So the worker is getting that check as they're off work. If you're off work under doctor's orders, you should be getting that workers' compensation check if you've been off work more than 7 days.
Well, so you've got that almost immediate influx of cash. It can really help. Again, most people are not, living lavishly. Most people are, I won't say necessarily paycheck to paycheck, but maybe thinner than we would like, right? So
right.
when you have that source of income coming in, that can make a difference in being able to pay the mortgage, pay the utility bill, or do these other responsibilities that you have, take care of those. It's not full wages. I mean, it's not everything, but it sure is, something, right?
Right. It's paid out. Workers' comp benefits are 66 and 2/3% of your average weekly wage, subject to a cap under Kentucky law. But there's not taxes taken out, so it's not your gross wages. But for most people, it's pretty close to what your bring home wages were after taxes and everything were deducted out of it. And I'm assuming it's 66 and 2/3% for that very reason, is because it's not taxed, and so they pay a little less because taxes aren't coming out of it.
Well, let me ask you this. What about the doctor bills and the other medical expenses that are incurred while you're receiving all that treatment? So you're getting payment, which is meant to kind of supplement the wages you're no longer receiving. But what about your medical bills? So I start getting all of these medical bills sent to the house. What do I do with those if I have an active workers' compensation claim?
You should, shortly after the claim gets started, you should receive something from the workers' compensation insurance carrier, or if the employer is self-insured, the third-party administrator of the claims that has the claim number and the address and the name of the person that medical bill should be sent to for the insurance company, and you give that to your medical provider, and they should bill them directly. And again, if you get a bill in the mail, call them up and say, this is work-related, this bill needs to go here. Especially early on in the claim, you'll see a health insurance being billed instead of the workers' comp insurance, because there is not a claim number. When you first go after an injury, if you go to the doctor right from your work to go to the doctor to treat with a work injury shortly after it occurs, you don't know who the workers' compensation insurance carrier is. You certainly don't know the claim number because there's not one assigned at that point in time. So a lot of times it goes to the health insurance, and then that will get kind of straightened out later on with the workers' comp carrier paying the provider, and then the provider reimburse the health insurance.
And again, all of that's taking place while the claim's being negotiated or being investigated. You don't have to wait to the very end. So filing a claim early is actually very, very helpful to the family and the household income. And that's really what you do. I mean, you guide them through this. Again, it's a complex system. It's a state government system, but you're there. You've done this for so many years. You understand how it works. You can explain the steps to them and handle a lot of those issues on their behalf, I would imagine.
Yes, and that's what we do here in this office. A big part of what we do is help clients through that process from there. And, I have some clients or potential clients talk to me, and they say, well, I don't want to hire an attorney because I'm afraid that my employer is going to be mad at me, or they're going to retaliate against me. And in Kentucky, or they don't want to file the claim as a work-related injury because they're afraid of retaliation. And Kentucky law specifically provides that an employer cannot retaliate against an injured worker for filing a workers' compensation claim or hiring an attorney to pursue that claim. So neither one of those should result in retaliation. And most employers, just as employees are covered by workers' comp, if you're an employer in Kentucky and you have an employee, you're required to have workers' compensation coverage unless you're in one of the exempt occupations, which is very, very few from that standpoint. In most large employers, manufacturers, and warehouses and things of that nature are, they understand that people are going to occasionally get injured through no fault of the employee from that, and workers' compensation cases are unfortunately a cost of doing business. You can't make you can't make large products or have a facility run without someone getting injured at some point in time. It's going to occur there. In my career, I've actually had employers who know me and know about my practice who brought their injured workers to me because the insurance companies were giving them a runaround and they wanted their employee taken care of. Frankly, I think more employers should be that way because an employee who gets prompt medical treatment statistically will have a much better result as far as recovery from the injury, and will be back to work much quicker. So it's actually better for the employer for their employee to get prompt treatment because they will be back to work with greater capacity and in a quicker time frame, at least statistically speaking.
Well, let me transition a little bit in the conversation today to also talk about Social Security disability insurance benefits, this SSDI benefits. We've had a previous episode where we really kind of dove into that, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for people to listen to if they'd like. But the important thing is now as we're announcing this new office, opening up there in Hopkinsville, we want people to understand you also handle SSDI claims.
Yes, I do. I handle Social Security disability claims. I've handled those for 30 years as well, like workers' compensation claims from that standpoint. And you see especially the facilities and companies that have more physically demanding jobs in them are, in my career anyway, that's where I see a lot of Social Security disability claims coming from there, because somebody that has worked and this employer is no longer around, but General Tire, when it was in Mayfield, you're throwing around heavy tires there and moving those, you're going to wear your back out, you're going to wear your neck out, going to wear your shoulders out, and you get 58, 59 years old, and that's what you've done your whole life. Your ability to go somewhere else and do a sedentary job that you've never done in your career is just not, it's not feasible from that standpoint. And so, I learned early on in my career that, especially here in where I practice, when I first started practicing, I don't know that there was anybody in Calloway County that handled Social Security. There wasn't anybody in Graves County that handled Social Security, or Marshall County, as far as I'm aware. So I started handling the Social Security cases from that standpoint, and because it was kind of in conjunction with the workers' compensation claims. We had the Social Security cases at times, and it's my practice has expanded where I'm handling. Actually, I'm licensed by Social Security in all 50 states, and I've handled cases in probably 10 different states throughout my career. From that standpoint, vast majority have been here in Western Kentucky, but I do handle cases out of Tennessee and other states as well.
I was going to say, we've got Fort Campbell, we've got Clarksville right there. I mean, that they could also come to Hopkinsville and speak with you on a Social Security disability case.
Exactly. On Social Security disability, I can handle those in Tennessee and do handle those in Tennessee frequently. That's the only type of case I handle in Tennessee is Social Security disability cases. But that, and I think the same kind of applies. You have, Paducah, which is where the Social Security hearing office is, has more Social Security disability attorneys who handle Social Security disability than the other counties in Western Kentucky. I'm still, I think, one of the only, if not the only, in Callaway that handles those, or the other counties. And I don't know of a great deal in Christian County right now. There may be more than I know of, but I think that's another need that's not being met there that I'm hoping to fill that void a little bit as well.
And just to clarify, I mean, if you're in Christian County, if you're in Hopkins County and you're starting to listen to this, and this may be one of the first exposures you've had to Jeff Roberts and his law practice, interestingly enough, on workers' comp and Social Security disability, sometimes you can file a claim at the same time for both programs. Is that right?
Correct. And it's not uncommon for someone who has a work-related injury, especially an older worker who has a work-related injury that's significant, that injury prevent them from going back to work. And then, and I have to advise clients at times that you need to file for Social Security disability as well. And frankly, a lot of times, if not most of the time, if the worker says, look, I want to get back to work. And my advice, in pretty much anybody who's sat in my conference room and talked to me about it, I've told them you're better off physically, mentally, and financially working if you can. But let's have this safety net in place just in case you can't. And it takes a while for a Social Security disability claim to go through the process. Some are granted initially, but that's very rare. So it can take several months to have a Social Security disability claim granted, if not years, from that. And once, we talked earlier with workers' comp, they have that check coming in while they're off work under doctor's orders. But once that doctor says you're at maximum medical improvement, that check's going to stop whether you're able to go back to work or not. That check's going to stop. And if you don't have Social Security disability process going or already started, then the person may not have any money coming in for a while, and that can be very, very stressful and very trying on an individual. And unfortunately, clients have to sell cars and things of that nature to pay bills. And so I try to make sure my clients don't have to do that by advising them on pursuing the Social Security disability. And if you get better and you get back to work, we can drop the Social Security disability claim at that point in time. You don't have to continue on with it. And if you can go back to work, you're better off going back to work. And I tell people that all the time. So, it's just, again, part of trying to make sure to manage the process the best for my clients' benefits as I can.
Well, and then to cap off the conversation, you also have had a very long personal injury practice, which is primarily trucking collisions, it's car wrecks, motorcycle accidents, things of that nature. But interestingly enough, not all injury firms, and you mentioned Mike's practice, who doesn't really do the comprehensive Social Security. You actually handle all three areas of that. And again, you can have one claim that may involve, or one accident, injury, that may involve all three systems at one time. So again, it's another value add that the Roberts Law Office kind of brings to the client.
Exactly, it is. And I do all three of those. And there's a few other attorneys who do as well. But and I also work with other attorneys who don't. They may handle the car wreck, the semi-truck wreck, but they don't handle workers' comp, they don't handle Social Security, and they contact me to represent their clients on those claims, and they handle the other claim. And that's, frankly, that's going to be one of the benefits with going up to Hopkinsville as well, because Mr. Berman and I have worked that way on cases several times. And so if it is a situation where he's handling the car wreck instead of me, and then he has me handle the workers' comp claim, I'm there in the same office with him because I'm using one of his offices as my satellite. And so, he and I can then, when I have downtime, he and I can talk about the cases we have and coordinate even better than what we do a good job of coordinating now. And we can pick up on the phone and do video conference, etc. From there. But being in person, and we can go over the records together, and so I think that's going to help in those situations as well. Well,
and I don't want to leave this episode without bringing this up. I think it was sometime last year we talked about another law firm who had brought you into a case that you ended up taking all the way to the Kentucky Supreme Court, where you end up, more often than not, I'm really surprised at the number of times you've actually practiced or litigated in front of the Kentucky Supreme Court. But again, because not every firm handles all three aspects, it's not uncommon for you to be brought in by one of those firms to handle a certain area of the case. And that's, again, you've taken those cases all the way to the Kentucky Supreme Court, which I've got to commend you on that. That's just, it's astonishing to hear, wow, not only does a guy say, hey, I'll represent you to the best of my ability, you've proven it many times.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And yes, I've been to the Supreme Court more times than I thought I would. Kentucky Supreme Court more times than I thought I would in my career, and I've got a couple of cases there now. And it's just, it's part of representing your clients. There are times that I'm the one who takes the case to the Kentucky Supreme Court because I don't think my client was, I don't think they got what they should have gotten, or the law needs to be changed in some regard, and I've been successful in those cases. And, there's times that the insurance carrier wasn't happy with what the judge awarded my client, and they're trying to get the appellate courts to take it away, and I will defend my client all the way. As far as they take the case, I will defend it.
There it is. There it is. Well, Jeff, again, congratulations with the new office. It's a big step for the firm. It ought to promote the practice a lot more aggressively in that area of the state. And to be honest with you, it's going to be a big convenience for your clients. And I really love the fact that you're investing in them as much as they're placing their trust in you.
Right. And the contact number, though, is still the same. And my staff already knows that if the client wants to meet in Hopkinsville, if they live up in that area, to give them that option to meet up there. But the contact number is still the same for the office. It's local numbers 270-753-0053. I also have an 800 number, 1-800-844-5108. And if you want to set up an appointment with me, call that number. We will schedule the appointment. And if you want to meet in Hopkinsville, if that's closer for you than Murray is, and you want to meet in person, we will do that. If you want to come to Murray, we'll meet in Murray. If you want to meet over the phone or over a video conference, whatever my clients prefer, that's what we're going to do.
Whatever it takes.
Exactly.
There it is. Hey, Jeff, once again, congratulations. Thank you for your time, and we'll be back in about 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.